Hi, I'm Chris Williams in the Office of Assessment Accountability. Today I'm going to be talking to you about SDRR. SDRR is our Student Data Review and Roster application and what its components are. So let's talk about what SDRR is and what we use SDRR for. Let's begin. One of the things that we can use SDRR for, besides doing data review and for rosters, is we can also use SDRR to help us when we're training our district personnel with SDRR is in with Sandbox. Sandbox, if you click on this live link, it'll be able to take you to Sandbox and you'll be able to practice by training your personnel of how to use the features of SDRR. And we're also going to make SDRR a little interactive today because we also, for this presentation, will be able to go to Sandbox and remember when I log into Sandbox, I won't be able to see a district's information because what we did is we were able to make up a version of Sandbox to be able to train districts on, so that way we could use that in our presentations. But when you log into Sandbox, you're going to see your particular students in Sandbox and be able to practice with those before you get to the live version of SDRR. And always you want to make sure when you're practicing with SDRR that you are in the Sandbox version. And you can go quickly to that Sandbox version by clicking on this link. Other things about SDRR is that we have to always make sure of data quality. Data quality is very important, is getting your rosters right, because if your rosters are right, guess what? It's going to be great when it comes to reporting. But if for some reason that you forgot to do some demographic information or you didn't put in your accountability correctly to a student or get accountability off that was not one of your students, or that you didn't file a non-participation reason why a student didn't get tested, that all can affect your, and also with kids who have accommodations, if you didn't get that information correct for your IEPs or your EL students. That one student could affect your data that's being reported. And of course, if during rosters, during this phase when rosters are going to be open in the spring, and then throughout the window for some of our rosters, because you know ACT rosters will be coming up soon. If you listen to the high school presentation, you'll notice that ACT rosters will be coming up. They will be opening in SDRR to file non-participations only starting March 11th. Now, another thing is rosters also have already opened for access. And access, they open throughout the window, and you will see those rosters again in the spring for access or alternate access. Now for ACT, you won't see those rosters again in the spring like you normally do for our others that are open throughout the year. And what happens with those is that, because remember, ACT this year is only going to be used for transition readiness. So you'll be able to see that information in transition readiness for the spring rosters to do accountability changes, file non-participations, or to be able to go in for transition readiness and make sure all the demographic information is correct. But then during data review, you'll be able to go in and see your transition scores and see if a student on the ACT met the benchmarks on ACT. So that's a little different than what it has been done in the past. Now, like I said, you'll be able to see on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see all of these rosters that will be opening up access, alternate access, your K-Prep, your alternate K-Prep students, your transition readiness students, and we added the school climate and safety survey that I was talking about too in the high school portion, but you'll see it again during SDRR and how to do that, because that roster will be open for you during the spring as well. And then another thing that will be open during spring rosters is cohort. That's for your 9 through 12 students who are getting ready to graduate and be moving on either to college or career. Now, with your students who are in that cohort, like I said, you will be able to go in and see that, but you won't be able to make any changes to cohort because it'll be just view only. You'll have to go back to Infinite Campus if you want to make any changes to cohort. Now, for spring rosters, we'll talk about what you can change in IC and what you can change in SDRR. And then once rosters close, the other function of SDRR is not only but rosters, but data review. Data review is also going to be important because if I got everything right during rosters, that means less I have to do in fall data review. I just have to review that information and make sure that everything that was done during rosters pulled over correctly for my data review. So that's why it's very important that you print out during the spring rosters that will open up in late April and stay open to second week of June for rosters, that you get that information correct and get everything in there. Because if you've done that, data review is going to be a breeze. And you want to make sure that you printed out those rosters during spring rosters time before that second week of June elapses, to make sure that you got all of your student listings, all of your ticket listings that you put in, and then also your transfer listings. So that way you can make sure that during data review in August, when that opens up, because it's a short window in August, it's usually about a week. And so you have all of this information to review one more last time before it's publicly reported. And you, like I said, you'll see all the information again, and then where are you going to see ACT? Underneath that transition readiness scores, you'll be able to see that information. And then cohort will be open in data review as well, besides our what we had at the rosters for spring. Our 100-day students. 100-day students are always 100 days as the first day of your district 14-day test window. And that's for all of these. K-Prep, alternate K-Prep, access, alternate access, transition readiness, and school climate and safety survey. People ask us all the time, Chris, where can I find some information to help me with accountability? Because I'm still not able, and you all used to, if you've been around, you know, for what I call seasoned DACs or BACs, and then for us who are seasoned at KDE, who've been around for a while, we used to be able to print out, you know, we had these like different accountability scenarios that we would go through with you. We also had those flow charts to be able to go through there with you. Well, guess what? All of that information is underneath this accountability tool. And if you have specific there's also, it's all underneath the accountability quiz that you can take and test your knowledge. It is anonymous, but we do want you to use that. It is very, very valuable. We want you to use that accountability tool to kind of help, you know, if you've got a particular scenario that you want to go through on the accountability tool, it'll help you with that. Also remember, for students who attend CRAFT, Gatton, and Kentucky School for the Blind and Kentucky School for the Deaf, that those students always track back to their A1 school. They are never accountable to those particular facilities. And then another thing is with our alternative program, you always want to make sure that you are putting accountability right to our alternative program. if the student has been in an alternative program the whole entire year and never had an A1 enrollment, then that student will go back to the A1 district. That's where the accountability goes. Now, if a student who is in an alternative program and they were placed there by the A1, or sometime they went to an A1 before they were placed there, or they went to an A1 after, because we do have students who want, as a 12th grader, want to go back for one day and graduate in that high school and get that diploma. Guess what? Then they go back to that A1 school, not to the district, but to that A1 school. So there's some unique situations for you for those students. But if I want some help, where can I find all of this information? I can find all this information about accountability, about this accountability tool, and more useful information underneath the I need help. And you'll see that when we get to the interactive part. Another place that I'll be able to help me determine my accountability and be able to get to this accountability tool is when I'm going in and I've got a new student who I've added to the rosters in SDRR. One of the steps it will ask, of course, you have to have, the first step you have to have is the SSID number to be able to add a new student to your roster. Once you got the student added, and where do I go get that 10-digit code? I go get that from Infinite Campus, because that's where you're going to find the SSID number. And remember, I said it was a 10-digit. So don't be putting in Social Security numbers as their SSID number. That is not right. Don't be trying to do a 3-digit or a 4-digit or whatever number from Infinite Campus into here, because it won't work. Has to be that 10-digit SSID number that Infinite Campus assigns to every new student when they enroll. And if you have problems with the SSID number, you always want to go back and talk with your talk with someone in IC in your district, or you want to send an email to the KDE data request, and they'll be at education.ky.gov, and they'll be able to get that information for you. Now that I've put in that, my SSID number, and it pre-populates that student, it found that student, and I had no issues with the SSID number, it'll ask you the next step about, what assessment is the student going to be assessed with, and, you'll be able to click the boxes to be able to show that in SDRR. Also, it will ask you about the accountable district and school. Because if you're a DAC, and you'll have to be able to put in, what school that the student would be accountable. As a BAC, it should show that particular school, that's just for those building assessment coordinators. If you're a BAC, it only shows those schools that are associated with you. As a DAC, it shows all the schools in your district. So that's an important piece. Another thing is, when you get to accountability, you'll see on the screen that you'll enter in the reason if you need to change accountability to a student. We do want you to put in the days that the student has been accountable. We don't want a date range be put in there, because then guess what? We'll come back and we'll say, need more information. And remember, for accountability, that you do have to get approval for those. And remember, as we say for anyone, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you when it comes to accountability. So don't be sending someone just because you don't know where they're supposed to go. Make sure you know where the student goes. You can also look at the enrollments in Infinite Campus, and then also you can contact the previous district to see how many days the student had been there with them as well. So that way you get it right. Now, another thing is that with for us to be able to pre-populate your accountability, because yes, that is a wonderful feature of spring rosters, is that we get to go in and put in we pre-populate the accountability. And you know what? How we can do that correctly is we need help from you. 2 ways that we need help from you is making sure in Infinite Campus that your school and district calendars are correct in Infinite Campus in IC. And another thing is on the screen now you see the K-Prep test windows. And let's talk about those K-Prep test windows, because I'm going to show you a screenshot. So let's take a look at that and we'll discuss it. Now, you'll see on the screen here, you'll see a screenshot of what those K-Prep test windows, and be able to go in and put those. You'll notice that on the left-hand side, you'll see the earliest date that you can be able to do that. And the way we can do that is by going by your school and district calendars and pre-populating that information for you when this opens. And you're probably saying, when is this going to open, Chris? It's going to open April the 6th and will stay open till April the 17th. You'll have that time frame to be able, as a district assessment coordinator, to, you caught that, didn't you? It's a DAC. Your DAC will be the only one who will be able to go in and put in those test windows, one for elementary, one for middle, and one for high school. And then, of course, you'll be able to test those students within that testing window for your schools that are in your district. Now, as a BAC, as a building assessment coordinator, what will I see on this? I can't make any changes in SDRR for the K-Prep test windows. That will be only view only. And so I can see what has been put in for my district, but I cannot make any changes or add that information into the SDRR. Now, once that before that closes on the 17th, you want to make sure, and remember, rosters and data review, everything opens in SDRR usually 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And usually it closes by 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes data review may be a little bit shorter, but for rosters, they will close at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So make sure that you have printed those out in either Excel or PDF or CSV file, whichever works best in your district. Print those out before 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 17th of April. Now, we're going to move into the fun and interactive part of SDRR. You and your district will be able to log into the sandbox version. You want to make sure, see, I'm in sandbox version. I'm in the sandbox environment. And so I've got already logged in to SDRR, to the sandbox version, and put my username and password in, and have got to this particular screen, login screen, to be able to see the home page of SDRR and what's going to happen on the home page. But before I can do that, people say, Chris, well, do I contact OAA for a password to get into Sandbox, or to Sandbox version of SDRR, or just to our rosters or data review part of SDRR? No. What you will do is you will contact your WAPOC, which is your Web Applications Point of Contact, otherwise known as your district technology person. If you don't know who that person is, you can ask someone in the district, or you can find a listing of those out on the KDE website if you search by WAPOC. And it'll tell you who the WAPOC is for every district in Kentucky. Now that you've got your access to it and you're logged in, one thing I want to talk to you about is this I need help. That is going to be very invaluable information for you to be able to get to lots of resources for how to do things in SDRR, and where can I find things on assessment, on each one of the assessments that I'm working on. And it has lots more other resources that we'll talk about. Now, Another thing is the latest announcements. Always when you are logging into SDRR, always look at the announcements box. It has what things are happening in SDRR. It always tells you if we've done some webinars on SDRR. It'll tell you what those. It'll give you links to the webcast and to the PowerPoints. Also, if there's something going on with SDRR that we want the districts to know that there may have been some issues with it, it'll be underneath the announcements. Also, we have that help that you can click on if you forget to click on that I need help button. Also, well, we're in the sandbox version, but if I'm in the regular part of SDRR and I want to go to sandbox to train mine, I can click on sandbox and it'll take me straight to that sandbox environment that you see right now, if you forget to go into the PowerPoint on the very first slide. Also, the accountability tool that I already talked with you about earlier in the presentation, you'll be able to get to that and also take that accountability quiz. We want you to test your knowledge to see how many you get correct for accountability, but remember, it's anonymous. We don't go through and go, now, well, who took this test? No. So feel free to take that quiz and see how much you know. And it's nice to be, and also when you take that quiz, guess what? If you miss something, guess what? It's okay if you miss some. Because when you miss one, it'll tell you what you should have marked and tell you why. So pay close attention to those ones that you missed and go, woohoo, for the ones you got right. And hopefully that you did well on the accountability quiz, because it'll tell you how many you got right. But don't fret, because like I said, it's anonymous. Another thing is an important feature of SDRR is it also lets you know what is open and closed. It's when it's green, that means it's open, and when it's closed, that means it's in red. Now, for training purposes, you'll notice that we have spring rosters. Even though spring rosters aren't open now, they will be open in the spring. So in Sandbox, you know, we had to be able to train you on some of the features, and we wanted to make it interactive so that way you'll be able to do that. So one thing you can do is you will want to have your laptops, you know, and have everybody logged into SDRR. Have them log in and then get to spring rosters, because that's what we're going to do for demonstration. You'll know that ACT rosters will be opening soon, and then also cohort, and then everything else will be opening during this time coming up soon. Because like I said, ACT rosters will be opening March 11th. Cohort will be opening up in the spring, which is the same time spring rosters will be opening up. And that will be around late April, and it will stay open for spring rosters till second week of June. Then what I want to do is I can also, we've got some unique things to kind of help you. You can click on these live links for student listings, and it'll take you straight to the student listing. You can click on the ticket listing and be able to get to your ticket listing for SDRR, and then also your transfer listings. Transfer listing is for those students who are going to be, you know, either you're transferring accountability out to another district or they're transferring accountability into you, and you'll be able to see that on the transfer listing. Also on that download is going to be very important because you want to make sure that you print out all this information before the rosters close on the second week of June by 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Now, I'm going to click on that. I can click on open and it jumps down. But remember, I just told you I could click on any of those other links and they're hyperlinked to get me straight to, if I don't need, you know, if I already know what I want to do in SDRR, and people go, Chris, how do I know that? Because I have an SDRR task list. And people do ask us, you know, I need some help on what I'm supposed to do. Well, that's what this purpose is. Is it optional? Yes. Do you have to do it? No. And what will it keep my check marks? It'll check mark if you've already done things. If you've done that in your student listings and in SDRR, it'll say great. It'll keep those out. When you log out, log back in, it'll keep those check marks, and then it'll show you the ones that are blank. That means you've got left to do if you want to use that. Another important thing is it takes you to the quick links to your student listings. But remember, I showed you up above that you could click on student listings and go straight into those. If you when you get down here to quick links, if you're doing that and doing your task list, you can also see all of your student listings all at once, or you can go by each test. And remember, what I told you was new was the School Climate and Safety Survey, and that'll be its separate roster. And the student listings, the purpose of those is to be able to go in and look at your demographics, look at your accountability, make any changes to non-participations, check, also go in and check your accommodations for students who got accommodations on SDRR. Now, transfer listing I've gone over with you, and then downloads. Then I want you to look at this important piece here. You always know the total amount of tickets that you've submitted, for that. Any new ones you have on there, also keep in mind, updated. Always want to check your tickets before SDR closes, and make sure during rosters that you keep a check on that on a regular basis. Don't wait toward the end of the window and go, oh, I forgot to go back and check that. If you did, it may be too late on some things if we're still needing some more information and you haven't got things approved, because we try to go as quickly as possible, but remember, we go in the order of your tickets. And so as they come in, that's the order we work in. So look at your updated tickets, because for accountability and non-participations, and several others, we will be asking, especially those two, we will be asking you maybe some more information because you didn't put enough information for us to approve that. You always want to make sure your tickets are approved before rosters close. You don't want any, if tickets are denied, we don't sit around and go, oh, I think I'm going to deny you today and not you today. We don't do that. Reason we deny tickets is that there's a reason why. There's another reason why you need to either the student should not have been on the roster, because we had some students who maybe moved before our test window, and you remember those students, you were supposed to just annotate and delete those off. Then another thing is, it could be you filled out an extraordinary you filled out an extraordinary circumstance, but it may not have been that particular one. So we'll tell you what we want you to do. And when we deny it, we tell you what we want you to do, and then you would go in and open up a new test ticket. You can't do anything to deny tickets. They'll always be there when you log into SDRR, and they won't ever go away. And don't go, oh my gosh, they denied a ticket for me. Just go in and look at it and see what it tells you to do. Closed tickets, that's what it means, closed. Approved, that means great, everything is done, they're all approved. Pending, you're waiting on OAA to approve it. And remember, for us, we have to approve medical and extraordinary circumstances and accountability for you. So now that I know about my task, know how to get to my student listings, and now my tickets, now let me get to the student listing and let's show you what we're to do. Now remember, for training purposes, you're going to see your particular district in there. I want to thank our division, who works with with Jill and Nathan and all the programmers, and underneath John, and for SDRR. to be able to give us this, be able to do sandbox. They've worked hard to be able to do that, and I do appreciate it, because then hopefully you'll be able to look at this video and this interactive piece and be able to go, oh, I remember when Chris told me about all of these features of SDRR, and this is what I can do. So when I go into it, I can go in and I can filter by sandbox. I can filter by lots of things: SSID number, last name, first name, district, school, I can go by accountability. I can do by my schools in my district. I can go by participation status, grade, lunch, IEP, ELs, accommodations, all of these when I click on my student listings. Another thing is I want you to do is, once you go in and apply these filters and you submit one of those or multiple of those filters, that when you go to do another one, make sure you clear filters out, so that way it clears that out and it gets you back to your original student listing and the information you were trying to filter by. Now, you'll notice that in mine, I do have dummy data in here. That is data that is just made up to be able to help me go through all of this information. And you'll notice that I do not have a particular district, because what does it say in testing school? It says school. There is no particular school in Kentucky that just says school. So then I know I'm in the dummy version to be able to, using dummy data to be able to do this presentation with you today. But like I said, you'll be able to log into Sandbox and be able to see your particular students in your district. Now, one of the things I want to talk to is, remember when I showed you, you can export it to an Excel, PDF, and CSV? You'll be able to see that. Also, when I click on add a student, I can add a student. And remember when I told you that I showed you that particular screen for when we're talking about accountability, that you can when you click on add a student, you have to have the SSID number, and that pre-populates and it goes through all the other steps. And then you want to make sure you save everything. And then when you refresh the page and you submitted all the information, then that student will show up on your roster. Now, what if I've gone and I want to go in and I want my first person here, and I want to go in and I say, oh, this person should not have been on my K-Prep roster, because this student should have been on my alternate K-Prep roster. Well, one thing I can do is I can go in and first thing I'm going to do is annotate. So remember, annotations will show no until you go in and then you would type in, student participates in alternate. Okay, and then I know I may not have spelled it right, but it'll tell you to fix it. And then I want to update. Now, when I update, it says the annotation was updated successfully. And then I can go back to that, and then look, it changes the it changes the no to a yes. And then I can go in and delete that student. And so I can click on delete now, and it'll say delete confirmation, and it'll say they're in status withdrawal, whatever, and it'll delete the student off the roster for me. Now, what if I deleted off the wrong student? Because I wasn't supposed to go in and, do that for that student. And I'll go, oh my goodness, what have I done? Well, what I can do is I can go under recover deleted student. And guess what? It'll recover the student back on there deleted, because they're never gone anywhere from SDRR. So don't fret if you deleted the wrong student by accident. You can always recover them back, and it always asks you, are you sure you want to recover the student? You say yes, and then the student will be on there. Now, that's how you annotate, and that's how you can delete a student, and then how you can add a student, recover a student. Now, what else can I do on my rosters? Okay, now I can make annotations, I can delete students off my rosters. Accountable student. You'll notice that if I make any changes to my accountable student, I can go in and I can click on that. So for the second student, I can go in here and click school, and it'll ask me, oh, you've seen this before, haven't you? So then it'll say help determine accountability. You put the district and school in and enter it, and then you'll enter the reason why you need to change accountability. And remember, we want the specific days, the details in there. And then you'll click update. Now, once I've clicked update, then I'm able to go on, and guess what? It'll say in progress. When I'm in progress, that means you're waiting. You've already submitted the ticket. Now you're waiting on someone in OAA to approve that. And then, so that's how you do accountable. Then non-parts, you can click on non-parts, and it's the same thing. It'll bring in the non-part. It'll give you the reason why, depending on the test will be what non-participations will show up. And you'll notice that for this one, for K-Prep, we have extraordinary circumstances. Those are extraordinary circumstances. Those are, that some of those could be, student is going through chemo or, or are missing. Those are extraordinary circumstances. You have your first year EL that you have to make sure you put in, so that way they'll be excluded from your accountability for K-Prep. You have students who were expelled without services because if they are not without service, if they're expelled with services, then they still are to be tested wherever facility they're in. Medical, we always want to make sure that when you do medical or whatever, it has you to go in and choose the file name, upload more information, upload the documentation, because remember, where are you going to go get that form? Off for medical and extraordinary, you'll go on to the KDE website, go underneath assessment support, click on either forms or K-Prep, and it'll take you to these forms. And once you get them filled out, you'll go in, you'll scan them into SDRR, and it'll say where are you going to find you can save them to your desktop or wherever. Find them, find the location where you saved them, and then upload those. Now, what we also want to know is we also want to know more information on, especially for medical non-participations, on the school's perspective for that particular student. We want to know what's happening with that student and be able to approve that. And then, of course, you'll want to save that and submit that. And then once you do that, guess what? It puts it in progress too, once you file those, and then that'll, you're waiting on us to approve it or deny it. And then once they're approved, then it'll change it to the particular one you chose. Whether if it's accountability, it'll tell you that it saved it to where the accountable school is. If it's a non-part, it'll tell you whether it's EC for extraordinary, MED for medical, etc. Then, so I've got non-parts done. What else can I do? I can go in and do accommodations. Now, the only way I can do accommodations to mark them as yes or no is if there is a yes here for my IEP students, or a yes in the column for my EL students. We can never pre-populate that for you, so it will always be blank there until you put in, because we would have to be there in the districts testing with you and know if the student got accommodations or not, but we don't know that. You're the ones who are testing the students and being knowing who's accountable or not. So now that we've got that done, and you know that it has to be IEP or EL status. Now, if your IEP students do not pull over correctly, guess what happens? If it says no there and you know that student had an IEP, either one, they didn't have a current IEP and IC, or two, you didn't have it locked. And remember, you always have to lock your IEPs at the end of the day, because what does SDRR do nightly? It hits back to Infinite Campus, and then it'll change that information in there for you. So we know you have to get in there and look at those. IEPs, but make sure they're locked by the end of the day. So that way when SDRR hits back, it won't change what you already have in there. Why did my ELs not go correctly? Well, my ELs didn't come over correctly is because I didn't go in and do something right underneath in Infinite Campus, underneath your index, and you logged into Infinite Campus under program participation. One, I have another language other than English, that I have yes as the student has English as their first language. EL students can't have English as their first language. Another thing is they have to have either a screener score and assessment score underneath that second tab for scores. Third tab is that they have to have a program services type, and another one, they can't just have refuse services. We know parents can refuse services, but they can't refuse testing. So the student is still EL even if a parent refuses. So you also have to mark something else besides just refuse services and have that documentation in their folder. And they would still be an EL regardless. The regular teacher would be the one providing the accommodations and instruction in the classroom for that student throughout the year, and not the EL teacher. Then another thing is that you also have to have the accommodations marked, both instructionally and assessment. And if you want assessment accommodations, they better be marked for our EL students underneath that program participation in Infinite Campus. Now, so if those didn't pull over correctly, if they don't say yes in those columns and they do have an IEP or they are EL, then you got a problem in Infinite Campus. But we're going to give you some resources when we get out of the interactive part to show you how to what those resources are. And like I said, our data folks are awesome. I know that Jill's going to she's the guru for SDRR, and you all work a lot with SDRR, but also Nathan Rome has been working with Jill he'll be working there throughout this cycle with you, and also for data review before Jill retires, which is sad for me. When it comes, and she'll be retiring after all of the fall reporting is done. So, but like I said, she's got a wonderful person who'll be working with her. Nathan Rome is wonderful. He's helped get some of these tools and things like that to help you with this as well. And he also got the resource available to help you if you have problems with your IEPs, ELs, and several others that you'll see. Now, you see these other ones that I said, like the name, the grade, the SSID, the date of birth, the gender, race, ethnicity, the lunch status. If those are incorrect, you can't change those during rosters. What you have to do is that you have to go back and change that in Infinite Campus. And if you changed it in Infinite Campus, give it 24 hours and it'll pre-populate what you changed it to in SDRR. Now, another lovely feature is this tickets. Tickets it keeps you all your ticket history and be able to see what tickets have been put in for the student for the last couple of years, and you'll be able to see that when you click on that. It'll be able to get to that ticket history and be able to show you that particular history for back for 2 hours. 2 years of data back on for that student. It'll keep this current year and then prior years to let you know last year's what the student got for if they had any changes to your tickets. Oh, guess what I forgot? See that I need help. When I click on that I need help, it's going to have lots of things to help you with that I need help. Every one of our assessment, if you have any questions about the field test right now, it'll show you about that. Any about our spring window dates, how to do that information, accountability, cohort, transition readiness, etc. Lots of useful information. When you click on those, it'll take you to those resources. Use this. We keep this updated frequently. We also have frequently asked questions. And so if you ask a question about access, guess what? You'll probably see that particular question. Now, it won't have your name associated with it, but it'll have the question that you may have asked about this, and it'll have the answer to that we responded to you as well. So make sure you use that. It's very important. So that concludes all of the interactive part. Now let's move back to SDRR and back to our PowerPoint presentation to be able to continue with this. Okay, now for our SDRR, you notice that we've already gone through the features of SDRR. We've been interactive with you. We've showed you how to do that. We've also, here is number 11, the slide 11. So 10 and 11 were the slides that we went through with you that were interactive. Also, we talked about roster dates and what you can do and what's going to be open and what else in SDRR. We told you what you can do in Infinite Campus versus what you can do in SDRR. And then if you have any problems with Infinite Campus, you would send that to the KDE data request at education.ky.gov. And this is linked for you. Also, if you have any problems with your IEPs and they're not if you've already made the changes in for your IEP students and they didn't reflect the next day in SDRR, you'll want to contact Amy Patterson, and it's hyperlinked here. She is wonderful. Then she will be able to help you with that. And we've already talked about, with your ELs. Also, what if there's problems with that. And then rosters, like I said, making sure all your students who are tested are on your roster. If they didn't get tested, make sure there's a non-participation reason why. Make sure your accountability, your 100-day students are shown for your accountability, and save those rosters before they close the second week of June. And remember, for rosters, all of the data will be pre-populated for you from Infinite Campus. Even we will pre-populate your accountability based off of your K-Prep test windows and your school calendars, so in Infinite Campus. And it's very important that those school calendars are correct, because that way we can pre-populate those for you. And also your demographic data, this will be an update, a new thing for this year, because we had some problems last year with our IEPs and our EL students and people not putting in the right end date for those, and then there were issues where it didn't come over correctly into data review and etc. from our rosters. So our demographic data will be as of the first day of your 14-day test window. That will be based on your district calendar. Also, this is the resource I was telling you about that will help you. You'll be able to click on this particular report that Nathan in our office has done a beautiful job of, and then Jill has also done a beautiful job of putting this information also in SDRR. And if you click on this Google form, you'll be able, at the bottom of your screen, you'll be able to click on that, and it'll take you to what each one of these reports, what more information about and details around these reports, what they're used for. And then what you're going to do is go into Infinite Campus and run these reports or extracts and be able to be proactive before rosters open toward the mid to late April. You'll want to make sure that your IEPs are showing up, your alternate assessment students are on the right alternate assessment roster, on the alternate K-Prep, and not showing up on your regular K-Prep. Make sure your English learners, your dropout students, your cohort students are all on there. Anything with cohort graduation rate, and that will show you. Now, that concludes our presentation on SDRR. Here is the staff in our office. We'd be more than glad to work with you Like I said, there's lots of valuable people that put a lot of hard work into SDRR with the resources, with what you see in SDRR behind the scenes for your districts to be able to use that and be able to know what to do with this. And we hope this presentation has helped you to know what you are to do in SDRR and know what those features are and how to do the things in SDRR. And please make sure that you share this with everyone who has an SDRR login. That way they know what to do in SDRR. And then also don't forget to take that survey in SDRR. When you log in, it'll say take our survey, and be able to provide us some feedback on SDRR and what is working for you and what isn't. And if you would like some changes to SDRR, you're more than willing to put your comments in there. And you know what? We do appreciate you and all you do for our students, and we also appreciate your feedback that you give for SDRR, because that makes it our work that we can get those changes, if possible, made for you, and then it makes it helpful for you when you're working with it and be able to, because like I said, it is user friendly when you know all the things to do with it. So, and it's very intuitive. So watch the video, also look at the interactive part, go into the sandbox, use that resource, go into the go in and use into Infinite Campus and run those reports. And also stress one important thing: use that I need help button in SDRR to help you with your work. So thank you again, and you all have a wonderful day.